Welcome back for that segment of today's edition of Sports Check with me, Richard Munga. And for the last segment, of course, we're going to be doing a review, really, of the weekend, what happened. We've picked up some major talking points, of course, starting with our very own product. Of course, we brought you all the matches live. I'm talking about the AFCON Under-20 Championship, where Ghana, of course, emerged champions after beating Uganda, debutants, Uganda 2-0. So instead to talk about that and more is Tirus Waiyaki. Of course, Tirus, thank you very much for giving us the time once again. Welcome back.
Thank you. Let me introduce myself like Ronald Okoth was in the first segment.
Course.
Thank you very much for the invite. I don't take it for granted.
Anyway, so we're going to be talking about, we're going to start with AFCON Under-20.
Yes.
Just briefly, for you and of course for the CAPS competition, it's actually one of the competitions that are often overlooked, the AFCON Under-20, but we forget that that's where Africa's future stars come from. All our major stars in Africa, of course, had to pass through that stage, that competitive stage. So maybe Ghana, of course, beating debutants Uganda. First of all, Uganda, you know, progressing to the final, the first time in the tournament. What's your take on that?
Obviously, would have preferred if Kenya are the ones who qualified for the tournament and went all the way to the final. But I'm happy to see our neighbors, Uganda, go all that way, not just on their debut, but just for the fact that they do merit it. And I'm really, really happy for them. As far as I'm concerned, they were the team of the tournament, but of course, Ghana were overall champions. It's very interesting how history repeated itself, because these two sides met in the Senior Men's Africa Cup of Nations final in 1978. That's before any of us here was born. And although Ghana had the last laugh, obviously it was a bit of a shocker to see Uganda go all the way to the final and almost win it. And then another shocker, interesting, the guy who won the game for Ghana in 1978, scoring 2 goals, was called Afriye. And last Saturday, the guy who won it for Ghana, again, same name, Afriye. History has this uncanny way of repeating itself, and it chooses the best of occasions, often than not, to do so. So congratulations to Ghana. It was also their Independence Day.
Exactly.
And
that was the best gift, of course, they could have, you know, received as they celebrated 64 years, you know, independence from British colonial rule. Oh, yes.
So congratulations to them, a befitting way to win and celebrate on Independence Day. What more can one say? Congratulations. Overall, the tournament was good. I followed it up to the last drop of action that it had to offer. We were very impressed to see that this part of the world, East Africa, that usually just participates in such tournaments, would actually be a massive talking point, and at the expense of the North Africans, because usually African contests, even at club level, are North African versus West African affair. But this time around, Tunisia, who went very close to the final, were even pipped in the 3rd and 4th contest. So they had to settle for 4th. We, East Africans, for once, we got to shine under the sun. And yes, I don't know whether that says the direction football is heading in, but whatever the case, I think we are getting there slowly. But it's Uganda, not us. We've got our work cut out.
Either way, it's something that we can borrow from them. Of course. Now, before, of course, we go any further, kindly, if we can have a glance at the highlights of that match. Ghana beating Uganda to win the Under-20 AFCON title. That was on Saturday. Let's have a look at the highlights. Okay, before we, of course, we can get that clip for you, maybe Tirus, the relevance, of course, of, you know, whatever happened, the competitive edge that you witnessed, because this is how we base our future football stars. So maybe the relevance, maybe according to you, of how successful that tournament was to Africa's future in football.
I'll single that down. I'll look at your question through the eyes of Kyadondo of Uganda. I don't know whether that's the right way to pronounce it because they like to pronounce K as Chadondo, I don't know. But it's the same fella who really did well in Chan, which was aired on KBC Channel 1 also, just before the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. And then he came again for Uganda Under-20 category. Brilliant stuff. And that's just an example of a young guy who, if you invest in them, you start them early, really you're going to stand a higher chance of reaping dividend. If you look at Uganda, for example, last time during the World Cup qualifiers, they came this close to qualifying. And then in the Africa Cup of Nations in 2019, senior men's category, they went beyond the group stages, even as far as eliminating tournament hosts. Egypt, or was it South Africa that eliminated Egypt? My memory is playing up with me. I think it was Uganda. Either way, Uganda did perform very well at AFCON. And the thing about Uganda is that they've gone back to the basics and built from there. Ghana, doing very well in all categories, even up to World Cup level. I spoke to a Ghanaian a few years ago and asked him, my brother, what's the trick? He told me there's no trick. It's simple. Going back to the very grassroots itself. Start the children young, universally across the board, without discrimination, in all parts of the country. And it will take about 10 years for that growth to be fully actualized, because the kids also need time they're growing and so on and so forth, and learning as well. But you will see what happens. It's magical. Once it happens, you can't even stop it. It just goes beyond your wildest imagination. So there's no shortcut around it. Ghana, you've seen them. They went all the way to their World Cup quarterfinals in 2010. Unfortunately, that penalty hit the woodwork. They would have made the semi-final. And once you're in those levels, you can go all the way and win it, really. It doesn't take much. It just needs a bit of a miracle, but you can do the rest and leave the rest to the gods. So that's where we fail as a nation. In Kenya, we have politicized everything, and we reap what we sow in the end. So at best, we get to the Africa Cup of Nations after years and years of struggling to qualify, but we don't get beyond the group stages. And we meet certain opponents like Senegal. We suffer from stage fright because our lads have not been prepared from that young age, really. So no shortcuts, and we love shortcuts in this country. No shortcuts, just start them young. And I'm glad you started with this session of today's program with a guy who's talking about talent of children, building that talent from a young age, identifying it, and then growing from there. Really, that's the trick. There's no other shortcut.
True.
To success. None.
Now, actually, since Tirus has directed this conversation to our next talking point of today, that is the FKF Premier League, whereby we had a few shocking results over the weekend. Looking, of course, at all the matches that we had in the last game yesterday, Kakamega Homeboys regaining their form. Recently, they've been doing that after finishing second last season and having a tough start to the season, the 2020-2021 season. They beat Madara United 2-1 yesterday, and of course our talking point majorly will be about Gor Mahia. Gor Mahia losing 2-0 to KCB yesterday, and on Saturday a couple of matches on card. Zuki Richo 1-0 victors over Vihiga United. AFC Leopards versus City Stars. AFC Leopards fine form this season. FC Leopards winning 1-0 that match. You had Bandari, of course, playing out a 1-1 draw against Nzoia Sugar, and Sofapaka barren draw against Bidco United. Western Stima 1-0 victors over Francis Kimanzi's coached Wazito FC. Now, before we get down to talking about the decline of Gor Mahia, if I can put it in that way, let's have a look at that match. What transpired yesterday? KCB beating Gor Mahia 2-0. Let's have a look at that. Now, that win enabled KCB, of course, to cut Tuskers' lead. That is to 6 points. That's just 2 games, considering KCB have played a game less, with Tusker having played 15 matches, KCB 14. Gor Mahia, that was the 12th match, but Tirus, many people have been speculating that the tables are finally turned in the Mashemeji derby. Well, not technically in the Mashemeji derby, since FC still can't beat Gor Mahia. But then again, this season, FC Leopards performing quite well, to say the least. And Gor Mahia, on the other hand, a huge decline, to be quite honest. So maybe your take on that. What can be, what has contributed to that? First of all, Gor Mahia, of course, the decline.
It's sad that at a time when AFC Leopards are surging upwards, Gor Mahia are a bit on the decline and hitting all the rocks and bumps along the way, because it would have been very nice for Kenyan football at club level and even at national level if both sides were going up.
Exactly.
It revives an age-old rivalry that has been there for, before even we were born. It's rather unfortunate. And the thing about soccer is that soccer is just an extension of life. There are high seasons and there are low seasons. That's why a lot of people thought Liverpool in England, their high season was back. But then they went up, and then just as drastically as they'd gone up, they went down.
It's like a bungee jump, really.
I know. It's like up and down like a yo-yo. That's uncanny.